You're live.
Good morning, everybody. This is Melissa. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me okay.
Yes.
Looks like we're just waiting for Director Reunion. And this morning you have Melissa and Michaela.
Great.
On the background.
Morning, Lisa. We missed you last time.
Yeah, I was up at Baker Station with all my students, so
Oh,
no phone or internet for a week for anyone.
And no heat, I imagine. I imagine it was a little cooler up there.
Oh my gosh, no, it was ridiculously hot. I had one student go home for heat issues.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it's not cool anywhere. It was, 90 plus degree days at, 7,000 feet, which is,
Yeah.
yeah, outside all day and camping out. Woo woo. It wasn't cooling off until, by the end of the week, it was cooling off. But at the beginning of the week, still 10, 11 o'clock at night, it was still pretty darn hot out there.
Wowie.
I made it down to the coast for 61-degree highs for 2 days.
Ah, nice.
It was definitely air conditioning blasting.
Yeah.
Let's see. Are we all here? Are we all here? I think so.
Okay, looks like we're all here. We're ready to go when you are.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Well, I'd like to call the regular board meeting to order on Tuesday, July 27th at 9 a.m. 2021. And let's see, before we start the pledge, Melissa, would you please call the roll?
Okay. Director Balin,
Here.
Director Boatwright,
Here?
Director Kern,
Here.
Director Murphy,
Here.
Director Reunion.
Here.
Okay, all 5 directors are present.
Okay, thank you. Let me see. Who is our person today? Is it Michaela or is it Corey?
Good morning, Barbara. It's Michaela today.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michaela. All righty. So how about if you put that flag up? And Lisa, would you do us the honor of saying the pledge for us?
All right. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it was found, indivisible, under God. The end.
Thank you. Thank you, Michaela.
Thanks, Barbara.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This need not be related to any item on the agenda. However, the board cannot act on an item on the agenda. Persons speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. So Michaela, at this time, is there any member of the public that would wish to address the board?
None at this time.
Oh, I see. Dane's
I
hand.
did see a hand after I said that. Sorry, Barbara.
That's okay. Yes, good morning, Dane.
Yeah, good morning, Barbara. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to come on real briefly and just give a brief update. My name is Dane Wadley. I'm the CSDA field coordinator for Tuolumne County. So obviously the district's a member of California Special Districts Association, has been for some time. I'm the local liaison to the special districts out there. And I wanted to give you just a little brief update. I sent some information to staff previously, but some of the things that CSDA has been working on your behalf, so especially legislatively and related to COVID relief. So as you're probably aware, CSDA has been working since basically the beginning of the pandemic to try to get some of the fiscal relief specifically to special districts like you who up until this point have basically been left out of the relief measures that have come out of Washington, D.C. or Sacramento. That fortunately has changed with the state budget that was adopted basically a couple weeks back at the end of June. So CSDA was able to secure $100 million in the budget for basically kind of general, revenue losses or new expenses that districts have faced related to the pandemic. So that's obviously very good news. We are working with the governor's office and the governor's Department of Finance to basically develop a plan as to how this is all going to, how it's going to work and how you would distribute money and et cetera. So there's still some details, admittedly, to be worked out on this whole thing. But the long and the short of it, though, is, your district too was very helpful, and we certainly appreciate that in securing funds for special districts, which, as I said, has not happened to date. So I'll certainly be in touch with staff, as these details are available to make sure that, that you're aware of it. My advice now is just to have, your fiscal impacts related to COVID as tied up as you can, or as firm as you can, maybe is a better term. So that way, when, this process will move quickly, and we wouldn't want you to, kind of get left out with the application period and et cetera. So there's that. Also, to CSDA working with Aqua and other associations were very instrumental in getting. There's $1 billion in the state budget specifically for utility districts related to the arrearages or the unpaid bills that we've seen. That's been a big impact on a lot of the utility districts. People with COVID, of course, or with the pandemic, have not been able to pay their bills, their water bills, and you've had to carry those on your books. So there's money available for that. The details, quote unquote, about that, how that program is supposed to look, are supposed to come out very soon. And again, I'll obviously forward those along to staff so that you guys have those and can take advantage of that opportunity, that kind of pot of money. So a lot of things happening there. Obviously, a lot of good news too to help out districts. Just a couple of things I'll touch on just real briefly. As you're probably aware, but the governor's executive orders related to the Brown Act, basically holding public meetings via, just Zoom exclusively. And then also the water shutoff moratorium that took place, has been in place for 15, 16 months. Those are scheduled to expire on September 30th. So obviously coming soon. So the meetings your board meetings related to the Brown Act will either have to go back into person, or you can still do a virtual meeting like this, but it just has to go back to what the old way was, when you'd have to notice it on the agenda, and the board member who participated from a different location would have to be a publicly accessible location, right? So I know there's been a little bit of there's been some confusion we've heard from districts about, well, what do public meetings look like after September 30th? So I want to try to clarify a little bit of that for you guys. So those were the main things that we've been working on that I wanted to touch on. As you know, CSDA we're continuing to, be involved legislatively, and will be through the end of the legislative session. They're on spring recess right now, but they're coming back in a few weeks to kind of this mad dash to the end of the session. So we'll be engaged there. And all of our training programs and resources and assistance that we provide will, of course, continue to be available. And likewise, if I can provide any help, I know a number of you guys know me and have my email and can reach out to me to give you some assistance. So I'll go ahead and stop there. Appreciate the time, and thanks again.
Thank you, Dane. And please thank everyone at CSDA for helping lobby for that money. I was really disappointed to see that the COVID related money didn't apply to special districts. That was crazy. So really, thank you. Thank you very much. And for my fellow board members, the CSDA website is really an amazing resource, and they just provide a lot of support. Those forums are really out there to help all of us. I know Abby takes advantage of being on that network. So again, we appreciate all the services you provide us. Thanks. Thanks for the update.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. And you're more than welcome to stay for the meeting, but we understand if you don't. So, okay. All right. Take care. Okay. Michaela, any other Member of the public that wishes to address the board?
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we'll close off the public forum. And Melissa, would you please read the consent calendar?
Okay, item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of July 13th, 2021. Item number 2, operational update on the water and wastewater departments for June 2021. Item number 3, resolution authorizing district staff to place TUD Clean Waters bond on the 2021-2022 Tuolumne County Secured Property Tax Bill. Item number 4, investment report as of June 30th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there any director at this time that would like to pull one of these agenda items or more? Yes, Director Ringen.
I'd like to just ask a quick question on number 4.
Okay. Any other director? Okay, Ron, go ahead with your quick question.
Okay, is Steve Sheffield present? I can't tell.
Yep,
Yes.
I'm here.
Good morning, Steve. Just on that investment report, I read through it and tried to make try to understand it. And I guess my quick question is are we putting money into those different things slowly as we go, or is it just sort of growing by itself? You know, I mean, there was a lot of information in that is all I'm trying to say, and I had a hard time trying to grasp it all.
Sure. Good morning, board members. Steve Sheffield, your finance director. Thank you for the question, Director Ringen. You know, if you remember, three months back, we had our first investment report with Chandler Asset Management. The board selected them. We updated our investment policy. And really, it was due to COVID, kind of a matter of what's the timing, you know, to go from our local agency investment fund to putting funds and investing funds in this. So, you know, we held off until February, and in February, we put $5 million from our local investment fund into this fund. And then they are slowly investing that $5 million depending on market conditions. Now, state law, as well as our investment policy, requires that a quarterly investment report be given to the board. So this is the first quarterly one since we started investing. That's really why I suggested putting it on consent, in that we're still investing. We still have that $5 million. If there is something specific, we can always have our investment advisor come to a future meeting and explain it. But really what the policy and the state requirements are is that on a quarterly basis, a complete description of the portfolio, type of investments, issuers, maturity dates, market values, and a list of all transactions be provided to the board. And so, yes, you got 48 pages of detailed information, but the original plan was for us to invest $10 million with this firm. So we started with 5 in February. They've basically invested that out. And then just this month, we invested another 5. So as of today, it's up to $10 million. Again, they're investing these as here, but you know, so what this is, again, on a quarterly basis, all the transactions will be provided to the board, all the detailed information. And if there is anything specific, at least on an annual basis, we'll have Carlos, our investment advisor, come to the meeting, explain to the board, but he's always available if we need him. So really today is just to comply with our investment policy and provide this report to the board. There's nothing in that I feel I need to bring to the board's attention. Again, it's just this is a quarterly basis of information required to be provided to you. So does that help with some context?
Yeah, it really does. Thank you for that. And I was looking at the ratings of the various investments, and looks like we're in pretty safe territory.
Yeah, and that's an integral part of the investment policy and state law that dictates what we can and can't invest in. And so, the investment firm is required to abide by those. And that's also spelled out in our audit report in the footnotes, but the investment policy adopted by the board is really what dictates what type of investments you can invest in. First and foremost is security. That's what goes. And then after security, you go to liquidity and you go to yield in that order. So you're correct.
All right. Thank you very much for that explanation.
Certainly.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Director Ringen. Is there any other director that would wish to call an item off the consent calendar for discussion? Seeing none. All righty, then I'd like.
That we accept the consent calendar.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Melissa, would you please call for the vote?
Okay, Director Balin,
Aye.
Director Boatright,
Aye.
Director Kearns,
Aye.
Director Murphy,
Aye.
Director Ringen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
And thank you, Steve, for your thorough explanation. It's great that we're making a little money off of our investments. Okay, Melissa, please read our first item for regular business.
Okay, item number 5, budget report and balance sheet for year ending June 30th, 2021.
Steve.
Audio. I'm back. We had several kind of housekeeping items in consent agenda, so I appreciate that. And I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. Let me make sure this works. And get back. Share screen. I believe it's. Are you all seeing the blue screen, with number 1 on it?
No, Steve.
No. Are we now?
There we go.
Yes.
All right. So this is again, another quarterly report pursuant to the board adopted accounting, auditing, and financial reporting policy. A financial report comparing budgeted to actual and containing income and balance sheets shall be prepared, delivered to, and reviewed with the board of directors on a quarterly basis. So the combined budget report compares the adopted budget versus actual results. And I want to emphasize here that this report, being our year end, June 30th, it's 12 months, but it's really pre-audit, which I think is very important for the board to understand. The quarterly reports we provide to you is intended to be a comparison to the board adopted budget, whereas right now we're working on year-end closing and preparing for the audit. The audit is the official, generally accepted accounting principles financial statement. Very stringent, very standards required. And we have an outside independent audit firm who confirms that the numbers we have in that. So there's quite a few adjustments and analysis that goes into what we're doing right now that, while it really doesn't affect the budget, it does affect the final audited financial statements that are done each year. I'm hoping to be able to deliver that to the board by the second meeting in September. The auditors are to begin their work August 23rd. So that'll be coming. But this report today is consistent with what the board has received each quarter. I really only have 3 slides. meant to be a combined overview. And again, I'm open to discussion anywhere along the line. So let me get back to here. So the first slide I'm showing you is combined revenue, and that's total combined, both water and sewer funds together. For this report, I thought it was more effective to just go ahead and show the amounts in thousands. So what you're looking at is $22 million. You know, the total revenues combined. Well, first, let me describe the columns going across there. The first one is the categories of revenue that we have. The first column, or the second column, is the current total budget that was adopted. Fiscal activity means actual year-to-date numbers, and then a variance in dollar amounts, again in thousands, and then the percent remaining, if you will, you know, comparing those two variances. Total revenues received for the year were $28.5 million. And if you look at the variances, the largest variance is down towards the bottom, the capital grants and the capacity and connection charges. And that variance is because when we do the budget, we don't budget specifically for capital grants or connection and capacity charges. Typically, we don't have a funding agreement in place as of yet. But as we do have those funding agreements, those revenues are specifically required to be spent solely on CIP. So that's not a budget item. So if we're analyzing this, you can see the next biggest variance, if you will, is utility billing, which out of $22.5 million, we're within 300,000 of our budget amount. Now, because we're at the end of the year, we still have approximately 4 billing cycles that will have some number of days in them, which compared to last year, once we get the audit, that'll be adjusted. But I mean, that's pretty much as close as I think as we've ever been in our revenue budget, looking at that. The next largest variance is the investment income, which, as we just discussed, during COVID and this year, we know that the LAIF investments have gone down significantly. So that's really due to the economy and due to the last quarter technically isn't required in there, but they're paying so little that it's not going to make a significant difference. So all said and done, if you compare the two, you can see there's a $4 million difference, which is a direct result of those last two rows, the capital grants and the capacity. So, I mean, for all practical purposes, our revenue actual results are dead on with what the board adopted as a budget. The next slide deals with combined expenses. Again, this is total combined expenses for the TUD as a whole. And the same column structure. The categories, these are the categories that are set up. There are detailed accounts within each of those categories that we track, but these are the categories you see in your report, and also you'll see on the audit as well. Total combined expenses for the fiscal year were $16 million, but I want to point out that's before CIP, meaning the capital improvements, before reserves. And most importantly, there's a PERS and an OPEB year-end adjustment. PERS being our retirement plan, and OPEB is really our retiree health the benefit that we're providing. And the PERS, CalPERS does an actuarial every year, and it's 1 year behind. So presently, we're waiting to receive that. There will be year-end entries based on the performance of PERS over the past year, based on the amount of retirements, new hires, mortality tables. So there typically is a usually pretty sizable adjustment for PERS that we'll develop as part of our year-end closing. And then as far as the OPEB, the retiree health benefits, we're required to have an actuary done on that every 2 years. So this year being June 30th, 2021, it is a year for the actuary. So right now we're working with our actuaries to develop that, and that will be provided to the board as well. So these amounts right here is really to budget, which, you know, again, budget to actual, but we will have some adjustments in here. Now, when you look at this, really the biggest difference is the personnel. And the main reason for that, if you look at, first and foremost, is anytime we're using our labor on CIP, It's not going to show up as an expense here, rather it's going to show up under the capital. So year to date, we spent about $653,000 of our own staff working on these CIP projects. So that's part of the reason, if you look at this, these amounts, all of them except for repairs, are under budget. So the 1.8 million under budget personnel, 653,000 of that was due to CIP. And then the rest of it was really some timing issues, unfilled positions. You had superintendents retiring. You had some big changes in there. But overall, looking at these, you can see we budgeted, excuse me. We budgeted 18.7, we spent 16 so far. And so all of those, I think, are within reason here. One more slide, and then I'll open it up to discussion. If you take the board packet and you look at that, your board packet includes depreciation, which we only record at the end of the year because it's a non-cash item. And really what we're more interested in is how much CIP was budgeted. So on your packet, it starts out, it says net $9 million. So in this summary I have here, I'm starting with that 9 million. That's the same one that's in your board packet. Year to date through June 30th, again, we're doing our final numbers, but year to date, the district spent $9 million on CIP. Now there is, because part of that's grant funded, in our original CIP budget, there's another $3 million that for a wide range of reasons is not going to be completed by June 30th. So you have to subtract that out as well. Then you add back the depreciation of $3 million. We had $400,000 of principal. And so the balance, just on the numbers right here, comparing budget to actual, is we almost broke even. There's a $148,000 balance just based on these numbers before the audit, before any of that. So that was a whole lot to throw at you in summary. If I had to summarize it, I think we probably couldn't be any closer to our budget to actual at this time period. The really important stuff's going to be with the auditors and what they find and what we do with year-end closing. And like I said, I'm hoping to bring that back to the board at the end of September to go from there. But as far as fiscal year 21, the board adopted budget is consistent with the actual expenditures. We've kind of gotten separate CIP reports on that, and we'll get more of that in the future. But you know, that would be my conclusion, my presentation to the board. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was great. Okay, fellow directors, any questions or comments for Steve? Michaela, are you seeing any hands go up?
I am not, Barbara.
Oh, okay. My goodness. Okay, so that was that's great. All right.
Good
Well,
job, Steve.
I'll stop sharing.
Just a general housekeeping rule, if someone's dialed in on their phone, I believe the command is *6 to unmute your phone.
Okay. All right. So, and with that, let's open it up to the public. Is there any comments from our public?
I do not see any at this time.
Okay, so we'll close off any public comment and bring it back to the board. Any further discussion before I ask for a motion to accept and file? Okay. All right. Is there a motion to accept and file this report?
I would make that motion. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, David.
Second that motion, and yeah, good job, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none or hearing none, Melissa, would you please call for the vote?
Okay, Director Balin,
Aye.
Director Boatright, Director Kearns,
Aye.
Director Murphy,
Aye.
Director Ringen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And thanks again, Steve, for really making it, at least for me, very remedial to understand. But more important, that we're in balance. So I really appreciate your vigilance on this. So thanks again.
Good job, Steve. Thank you.
Melissa, item number 6, please.
Okay, review proposals for executive recruitment services for the position of general manager.
Great. So, okay, Abby, I think this is your bailiwick here.
It sure is. Thank you, President Balin. Good morning, directors and staff and members of the public. Today, what we're going to be doing is mostly a presentation of the proposals that we received for the executive recruitment of general manager. And per the direction of the board at its June 22nd meeting, we issued an RFP for these services. So we're looking at those proposals, as well as I interviewed my HR counterparts at Amador Water Agency, AWA, and Calaveras County Water District, CCWD, to gather information related to their most recent general manager recruitments. And so really, I just want to start off by saying this is mostly, I'm going to provide information based on what we received. You've got the 3 proposals in your packet there, so you've had time to review that. But really just want to encourage discussion. You know, this is your item, and there's no decision necessary at this meeting. However, you can do that if you wish, but I really wanted you to have the opportunity, and also per the HR and External Relations Committee recommendation, just to gather the proposals to see what the options are for the board with respect to the recruitment for general manager. So Don Perkins was appointed as interim general manager June 14th, and has been doing a great job. And we just, it has been an interest of the board, though, to fill the permanent general manager position. So that RFP went out on June 24th, following that June 22nd meeting, with a deadline of July 15th. The district received 3 proposals, one from Avery Associates for the amount of $23,400, one from Bob Murray and Associates for $24,900, and the last one from CPS HR Consulting for $25,000. And so that's a range. Just as a reminder, the district has used executive search firms in the past for their general manager recruitment, at least since 2016. The only one out of the list of agencies that submitted proposals that the district has used in the past is CPS HR. Other agencies either responded that they didn't have the capacity to run the recruitment, or did not respond to our solicitation. I'll move forward to AWA and CCWD if you'd like, and you can discuss all at the end, or would anyone like to discuss the proposals before I go into my interview with those agencies? I see Director Kern's hands up.
Yeah, you mentioned CPS is the only one that we've used before in the past.
Correct.
How long ago? Do you know how long ago that was?
That was in 2015.
Okay.
That was the recruitment where the district hired Thomas Hagland.
Okay. All right. And the other 2 we have not used.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's all I need right now. Thank you.
Okay. Director Ringen?
Thank you. Did you happen to send a solicitation to Brown?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And
yes, I did. And I didn't get a response from Wendy Brown.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. And just for the information for other board members that may not have known, Wendy Brown Creative Solutions was the firm that the district used in 2018. Okay, so then I also reached out to Karen Gish at Amador Water Agency. They ran a recruitment in 2020 for general manager while they had John Kingsbury on as an interim general manager. In my interview with Karen Gish, she let me know that they had hired a consultant for recruiting consulting, including other management type activities and services. They hired Rob Roscoe with Inner West Consulting Group, who they do a very wide range of mostly management and operations type facilities. Just when I looked at their website and reviewed that, it was about a 5-month process for them. Rob Roscoe, who was the consultant, was the lead on the recruitment, and John Kingsbury, the interim general manager, took the kind of the assistant role to the consultant on that. HR had limited involvement, especially for about the first 2/3 of the recruitment. But they did involve the department heads and also in interview panels, and also included an external panel that involved city managers and county CAOs in an external panel. I believe they had just under 20 applicants for that. As far as what she believes went well in that recruitment, she thought the board panel did a great job, and the fact that they included the department heads was helpful, and a very collaborative and interactive process throughout. They ended up hiring Larry McKinney in 2020. So, and then the contract was negotiated by the consultant and the interim general manager. They did have a leadership panel with the consultant that included 2 board members and the consultant, and then they also included a labor representative as well. So that was AWWA. I'm really summarizing, so feel free to ask more questions if you have them. I'll go ahead and just report on my conversation with Stacy Lawler, who is the HR director at CCWD. I talk with Stacy on sort of a regular basis, probably about monthly or every other month on various HR issues. So both were very, very helpful and willing to send me anything I needed. So I was appreciative of that. CCWD, so Stacy did take the lead role in that recruitment, starting with the advertisement brochure. She said that they used an existing brochure they had used in the past and updated it for their current recruitment, and advertised in the usual places that we've advertised in the past: CSDA, Aqua, CRWA, BC Water Jobs, and the like. They also had about 15 or 16 applicants in their interview panels. They had their department heads with HR and a labor rep on one panel, and their board of directors on another panel. And their recruitment took approximately 4 to 5 months. And she indicated that I asked her about how much of her time it was. She said it was about double the time of a normal recruitment, which would be, in my opinion, sounds about right to me, if not a little bit more. And they ended up hiring Michael Minkler. So that was about 1.5 years ago, and they seem to be happy with him. So with that, I would like to open it up to questions again. If anyone has any questions about those 2 recruitments from AWA and CCWD.
Thank you, Abby. I have no.
Oh, I see Director
Lisa
Murphy's hand.
Yes. And then Jeff Kearns after Lisa.
Looks like I'm muted, sorry. Yeah, just to clarify for me what, it's not specifically on either of those districts. I see that they did it 2 different ways, and those are the 2 ways that we're considering. What has TUD done? Has it always gone with recruitment firms, or have there been different ways in which TUD has done it?
Yeah, so good question. So at least since 2006, since the district hired Pete Campa as general manager, we have utilized each time for the permanent general manager position an executive search firm.
Okay, and prior to that?
I don't have good records for prior to that as far as how they ran the recruitment.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Jeff Kearns and then Jesse Barton.
Yeah, Abby, looks like I read through these last night, but going back over them again, it looks like they're all in that 14-week timeline. Is that what you understand that to be true as well?
That is what I've seen as customary on these proposals, and I think the last time when we talked about the time frame, I think I said something about 4 to 6 months, really from the initiation of the recruitment and the development of the advertisement and the profile and all of that to the time of appointment typically is within 6 months. So it looked pretty customary to me.
Okay. And then I see this is just a review. You're not looking for us to actually make a decision today, correct?
Well, I think I posed it as potentially, if you wanted to hear from any of the consulting firms that submitted proposals, but there is no hard press date that the board needs to make a decision by. So that's fully at the board's pleasure.
Okay. Barbara, what, President Balin, I should say, what is the HR committee working on this as well? I imagine they probably are, aren't they? Or they're not? I see Lisa shaking her head. Okay, so this is strictly at the board level then.
Right, we gave our recommendation.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Our recommendation was to bring this to the board.
Okay.
That it's for Abby to do information gathering and present it to the board so that the board as a whole could make a decision on what how to move forward.
Jesse Barton. Oh.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you. Yeah, just to pick up where I think Jeff left, Director Kearns left off there is, in reading your staff report here, I don't see any specific action that's being requested. And in the way the agenda is worded, it's just a review proposal. So I think what we're looking for here is just giving the board an opportunity to review the information, think about it, and then if a decision is desired, it would come back at a future meeting.
Thank you, Jesse.
Steve Sheffield has his hand raised.
Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, board. I just, in listening to this as member of management, I just feel the need to kind of point out one thing that some board members may not be aware, but as Abby described, we've used these outside search firms since 2006, but we're in a little bit different situation in that we have never had an internal employee being applied or being an interim GM that is interested in the full-time position. So I just think it's important when you're considering the executive search and how you do that, it's a little bit different story as far as continuity and what we've been doing and how we've been doing it, that, these outside search firms, we did not have anyone in-house that we would even consider for it. So I just think that's important context. I'm not suggesting one way or the other by any means, but just as part of your management team, I think that's important to take into consideration. So thank you.
That's great, Steve. Thank you for bringing that up. That's a good point that I failed to mention.
Lisa Murphy has her hand raised.
Yeah, and that's why we're bringing this back to the full board, is that, you know, when we went for the interim, we spent a lot of time in the processes, and we just want to make sure that that the board know that we kind of are making a wise decision on how we're moving forward based on kind of where the where we want to spend the energy on this, and kind of what the end goal is. So I agree with what Steve said, that that's an important thing to weigh in there when we're looking at this. And another thing that we talked to Abby about was that if we are doing a recruitment thing, that pamphlet that was created in the past, that was another thing that the board was to be looking at, to as a whole board, to look at and see if there were things that needed to be changed about that, or if we are keeping that consistent. So there's, you know, the two pieces to think of, like the recruitment. If we go with a recruitment firm, the recruitment materials we need to look at, and then that just what direction TUD is hoping to go with leadership, and to really put some thought into that before spending $25,000 to get an external search going. So that's all part of it.
I don't see any additional hands raised.
Okay. Well, Abby, thank you for your comments, and thank you for the presentation and gathering up all the data and the recruitment information and how our sister agency did it. This is a chunk of change, I see, you know, and I do recall after Tim McCulloch, it was Gary Yeager. I don't remember us advertising, and then after Pete Campa, then we had moved in as interim Tom Shaza, I think. So, all right. I am not prepared to, me personally, I'm not prepared to decide. I would like to mull this over, but I will entertain any other ideas on this topic, and we can certainly bring it back. Well, okay, since this is informational only, let's take it back and think about. We'll definitely put it back on the agenda again.
You froze up there for a second, Barb.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just said this is for information, so let's chew on this for a bit, and before we bring it back for a decision at another board meeting. Did I freeze up?
No, we heard you that time.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Abby.
Okay. Thank you all.
Okay, any other public comments on this item?
I do not see any public comment at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Michaela. Well, then let's move into our last, staff reports.
Hey, good morning. I do have a few things I'd like to go over. It's been a great meeting. Thank you all. So starting off, sometime earlier in June, Director Kearns and I attended Willow Springs Homeowners Association to hopefully get an opportunity during public comment to speak on the district's behalf regarding the acquisition of PG infrastructure. We were able to do that. we fielded a few great questions, and we feel like it was very well received by the president and the public that did participate in that meeting. One of the results of that, as it turns out, Willow Springs Homeowners Association puts out a Willow Springs Digest, which is their official newsletter. And on page 3 or so, there's a little plug for TUD. It says, TUD working to secure water rights for Tuolumne County. We need to support TUD in this process. The county has no water rights, and those rights are our future. Call TUD and show your support. So pretty good plug, I think. So that's kind of neat. On July 9th, Director Balin and I at 7 p.m. met with the Farm Bureau, kind of a meet and greet for me, get to know some more constituents within our county that are important to TUD and the county. That was a productive meeting. On July 14th, I attended the Natural Resources Committee. Again, for me, it was more or less a meet and greet, but one of the topics on their agenda was to possibly combine the Natural Resources Committee with the Water Policy Advisory Committee. And the consensus on there, both committees are uniquely important, so there was a consensus not to combine the two committees, at least so far. Then on July 22nd was a very busy day for me. I met for about 2 hours with the grand jury. I can't go into the details, but I can tell you it was a great meeting. Just a great meeting. I enjoyed the time spent with them. Also on July 22nd at 2 p.m., I did attend the Water Policy Advisory Committee at the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors Chambers, and it was a good, productive meeting. Again, kind of a meet and greet for me, introduce myself. Here, this particular committee's been silent for a couple of years, not a lot going on, so there was some concern whether or not this committee should actually exist anymore. But I think there's some renewed interest, and I'll be working with the chair there, Jerem Brandon, on how we're going to move forward with this committee. So looking forward to that. Later on that evening, on the 22nd at 4 p.m., I attended the Board of Supervisors meeting held at 4 p.m., a special agenda on the American Rescue Plan, which was very informative. I know some of you, like Barbara, will say sometimes, we can be in our own silos and not really understand what's going on around us. But boy, that was a real eye-opener with all the challenges the county has facing them. So busy month, but productive. So thank you.
Thank you, Don. Staff? Eric?
You're on mute. Oh.
Yeah. I pushed my chair forward and muted myself at the same time. I multitasked very well. Well, good morning. My staff report really pertains to our Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant project. I just wanted to give the board an update and let you know of some upcoming events that we're anticipating. As a recap, we opened bids on June 7th. And of course, the bids were substantially higher than we had expected. And since that time, we've been working hand in hand with USDA to secure some additional funding, and then also to do some other housekeeping activities like work with the contractor to extend their bid date. Jesse drafted a letter agreement that was sent to the low bidder, which was Kiewit West, Infrastructure West, to extend their and hold their bid price for an additional 60 days, which carries us out through September 20th. So that's good. And then with USDA, we've seen substantial progress in what we think is a very reasonable funding package. It involves TUD contributing $8.8 million of our own funds in exchange for $8.5 million in grant. We were told by staff at USDA that the total amount of grant funds that were left in the state were allocated towards this project. And we will be able to provide the district, the board, more detail at an upcoming board meeting. But the remainder is a loan of $24.9 million. And the terms are, 1 1/8% interest rate for the first $15 million, And then interest rates have gone up, so we're at about 1.375%. And I know these are just numbers, but I just want, Steve can speak to more detail here, but you know, the one example or comparison could be if you were getting a loan at a 0% interest rate for 20 years versus the loan that we're proposing for 40 years, your payments are actually more on a 0% interest loan because the term, bless you, Barbara, because the term is 20 years. And so we're looking out 40 years. And our hope is that at your next board meeting in 2 weeks' time, we will be able to bring for your consideration a number of items. Number one, complete funding package with the details from USDA. Number two, the documents needed to secure the interim financing. So we've been working with bond counsel on those items. And then ultimately, if the board accepts the funding package and the interim financing, we're going to ask you to consider awarding this contract to Kiewit Infrastructure West so that we can start construction later this year. So if you have any questions about the project or any of the specifics, please don't hesitate to reach out to Dawn, Steve, or myself. Otherwise, please be on the lookout on your next agenda package for a significant amount of documents for your advanced review and consideration on August 10th.
Thank you, Eric. Anything else? That's great. Okay, let's see.
There's some questions out there, Barbara, Director Kearns and Director Murphy.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Eric, so I'm concerned about those bids, and when we do the rebidding, how long are they going to be good for? And is these prices that are going up on all the supplies and whatnot, how's that going to play out? I wonder, are these bids going to be good for a shorter amount of period of time than they usually are, or any idea on that at all?
Well, that's a great question, and I didn't communicate very clearly earlier. The positive here is that we have a signed agreement from the prime contractor, which is Kiewit Infrastructure West, to hold their bid price until September 20th. So we have a firm price in place, but underneath that total bid price is a number of suppliers and vendors. You know, I mean, it's the trickle down economic effect. And those suppliers and vendors work directly behind the scenes with the prime contractor, Kiewit. And so Kiewit, by holding their price, is agreeing to negotiate with those vendors and suppliers to either make adjustments in price, in which case it may affect Kiewit's bottom line, or to hold their prices. But that is outside our purview. Our most important thing is that we have a contract with Kiewit that's firm and fixed at least until this board has an opportunity to make a decision on moving forward or not. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric.
And Eric, question, I was just doing the quick math on that. Do those numbers add up to covering the whole project cost?
They do. And again, more detail that I left out. I wanted to keep this simple, but included in all of those numbers, the 8.8 million in TUD contribution, 8.5 million in grant from USDA, and the 24.9 million in loan is a 10% contingency. In addition, it also pays the district back for over $1 million in funds it has already expended, pay back. It also includes the over 1 million we've expended for design and bidding and environmental on the project. So it includes some other what we call soft costs, but it is the total project cost.
And then when you do the final analysis, could you also include what the total TUD will pay, within the 40 years, what the actual cost of the district will be in the end?
Absolutely. I'll look to Steve to prepare those numbers. We have those already, but we will present those to the board before it makes a decision on moving forward.
Excellent. And then from the wastewater side of things, the other piece that I would just like to understand is if we have wiggle room on this. I know that the building supplies on the wood side of things has been coming down some. I know that, you know, like the big jump in cost has a lot to do with current transportation of materials and, you know, and the situation that we're in because of the pandemic. And wondering just if you guys have looked into the, could it be an advantage to wait a little bit longer to do the project? And I don't know what's feasible within the confines of, I know that this facility, you know, was built, what was it, 1974? And that there's a lot of things that need to be changed to keep us in compliance with the stricter wastewater management practices that we need to be upgrading to. But just kind of getting, I would love to hear at some point a little bit more about kind of where we are on all that and what the, I don't know if we have direction from the state that we have to have things ship shape by a certain date or something, but any of those pieces would be great to hear as well, if when we get to that next meeting, if that's possible.
I'm taking notes, and we'll include those items in our discussion at the next board meeting. There are answers, they aren't necessarily concrete, black and white answers as it relates to bidding and exposure and risk and whether or not next year or waiting would be better. But it's a healthy conversation to have. So we'll be ready for that.
And then one last thing, when we had talked, I think it was like 6 months ago or something, about the big five, the 5 pieces of equipment that we were trying to lock in at a specific price with specific providers. Did we do that? Are those, or have the prices on those things all changed as well?
Great question. We have secured 4 of the 5 vendor contracts, and the 5th is forthcoming. We're working through just last Friday some final details on that. There has been no adjustment in cost or discussion of adjustment in cost, which is very positive. And there isn't, fortunately, in these agreements, any provisions, and Jesse knows some of these agreements, to adjust. So we're looking really solid as far as equipment procurement is concerned, which, just for your information, is roughly 10% of the project cost. It's a little over $3 million, but that's very positive. It allows the contractor to have some security and to order that equipment up front, so that we, like you mentioned, lead times and shipment and procurement can be very time consuming right now, and that will allow us to move forward very quickly.
Nice work on that. Thank you.
Director Balin has her hand raised.
Thank you. So Eric, at your next presentation on this, would it be possible to put those numbers, let's say on a slide in context? Because I think I recall that the district, okay, so the total price was a combination of loans, grants, and then TUD would kick in. I seem to recall 5 million we were asked at the beginning, and now am I following you to say that it's increased now to 8 million for district contribution?
You're correct. Originally, we were putting up 5.5 million. Now we're putting up 8.8. So our increase in contribution, though, you know, is roughly, I'm kind of looking at this, less than 3.3 million, right? So our increase in contribution is 3.3 million. However, USDA is increasing their grant by 4.3. So at least we're getting more money in grant this second time around than we're being asked to contribute. However, you know, in full disclosure, I won't physically be at in the office at the next meeting. So I'll be working with Steve and Jennifer and the team here to make sure all of these items get addressed, and we can certainly prepare a slide that makes it very clear where the funding's coming from, what the original package was, what the extended or augmented package is, and what we're asking the board to execute on.
Thank you. Director Reagan, Ron.
One of the things that I'd like to suggest to staff is to maybe start thinking about the septage haulers and the fees that we are going to be charging. And then I'd also like to suggest that maybe that get taken up by the wastewater committee for initial conversation, and so that it can go before the board if there is anything that comes out of it.
Thank you, Ron. We'll definitely do that. And I'm sure Melissa took down that note, so we'll get it on a future meeting pronto. Thank you.
You bet.
I think Director Boatwright has his hand up.
Yeah, still trying to work on how to form this question. When we were going through the bidding process, there were additional adders to, you know, basically the base price of doing that. The bid package that we're looking at covering, does that include all the adders that we had on that?
It does not. It includes the base bid, which entailed all of the critical aspects of the core project, the additive alternates, which included demoing the old facilities and some improvements to the maintenance buildings and whatnot, are not included. The positive there is twofold. One, with a 10% contingency on this project, we're looking at about 3.7 million in contingencies. If the project costs are controlled and we're able to manage that, there will be some funds that the board will have at its discretion to apply. Now, I can't guarantee this will happen, but there's a possibility you could fold back in some additional scope of work. In addition, there's some work our crews can self-perform. Certainly demolishing some of the concrete structures is something that we could do, and could even do some of that in winter time. So unfortunately, with the project cost as it is, our focus is just the infrastructure needed to fire up and operate a new treatment plant.
Okay. Has there been any discussion as to, and I'm actually opposed to it, as to downsizing or, you know, basically shrinking the design size of the bid on treatment plant?
We looked at a number of options. One, removing the tertiary filtration, reducing the size of the chlorine contact basin, and trying to use the pipeline for some of our disinfection. We looked at a number of things. What the board will see is that we are removing some of the paving and landscaping and fencing from the contract to reduce the value. This was a requirement of USDA. They wanted us to demonstrate we were reducing scope before they offered more funding. However, our contingencies will more than cover adding that back in. It's kind of a shell game, but it is an important symbolic gesture for USDA to see that we did that. But no, our design flow and our screening capacity and our treatment capacity are not proposed to be reduced in order to save any money.
All right, thank you.
Director Balin, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Steve has his hand up though.
I waited for the directors. I just want to, great discussion, great comments from the directors. Eric just did an outstanding job summarizing it as to where we are. Now, technically, we still don't have the final from USDA. That's kind of what we're waiting on is this. They will obligate the funds and basically record everything that TUD is qualified for. But, a couple things I heard from the board members. First of all, I just want to share with you, your staff has worked so hard on this. If you asked me a year or 2 years ago, if we would get to this project and get this kind of USDA funding, I mean, never in my wildest dreams. USDA has worked with us. All of your staff has worked diligently. We've reduced project cost. We've worked with the contractor. And I believe it was July 15th, Dawn had sent each of the board members a summary. And some of your questions, I would direct you, if you haven't, if you'd like us to resend it, we can. But there's just a one table there that kind of spells out everything. I know Director Murphy had asked about the total payments. Far right there, underneath this new proposal, $789,000 a year. Multiply that by 40 years, and there you got the total TUD commitment. It spells out the additional amounts that Director Balin was asking about that TUD needs to put up under this package. But it's just a real neat summary that shows it there. Yes, this is huge, but USDA believes in us. This is a project good for the community. And, they kind of really went to the mat, and we went to the mat with them to make something that would work for both of our things. And, for us to get the increased grant funding as well as the increased loan, I mean, this is providing us this opportunity to decide whether we want to do this or not. Whereas, when we opened the bids, I kind of was thinking it wouldn't get to this point. Now, part of this is, like you mentioned in there, if we wait past that 60-day extension, we are going to have to rebid everything. And yes, there's a chance some materials are going to go down, but some materials may go up. We were surprised by the last one. There's also commitments with USDA. They have an August 6th cutoff for fiscal year 21 funds, and then October 1st, they'll open it up for fiscal year 22 grant applications. So timing's kind of critical, but again, we're just trying to continue to provide the board with the key information, and Eric has just done an outstanding job, and everybody's been involved, so I just wanted to share that. Great questions. As Dawn said in the email, feel free to call myself or Eric anytime if you'd like any more additional information, but I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, and that would be great if you would send that email around again. I think after this discussion, that would be a good idea.
You got it. I think I can include a few more lines in there on some of the questions I heard too. So you bet.
Thank you. Okay, any other staff reports? Abby.
So I have sort of devoted my staff reports to giving kudos to our staff here at TUD. And so I enjoy doing it. And I think you probably enjoy hearing about all the great work that our folks here at TUD, really the meat and potatoes of the organization, our number one asset here at TUD. Those are the folks that, make us look good when we do. And so we appreciate all their work. So I'm going to share a couple of kudos we got from the public just this last month. So the first one was for Matt Pfeiffer. He's one of our ditch tenders, and he's been with the district for over 15 years now. And we received an email from the Ponce group. Did I say that correct, Eric?
Ponce Ranch Water Users Association.
Ponce Ranch. Okay, they said Ponce Ranch Group. So thank you for that. This is an email that Eric Johnson received about Matt Pfeiffer. So the Ponce Ranch Group held a water meeting last night, and we really wanted to express our deep appreciation for Matt, TUD ditch tender. The Ponce Ranch guys that worked on the water problem expressed how helpful he was, how determined, and how lucky we are to have him in our area, and how great he was to work with. So they asked that we please pass that on to his supervisor, and so I'm going one step further and passing it on to your board. So great job to Matt Pfeiffer. We really appreciate his hard work out there. The second is one for Kalisha Finn. You have heard kudos for Kalisha, I would say at least 2 or 3 times before. She's the first voice you hear when you call the district in customer service department. She's outstanding. Her supervisor sent me a note, and Emily Long, who's our customer services supervisor, sent me a note that she had received a call from a customer who wanted to let her know what an amazing employee that we have in Kalisha. He recently had a water leak and has had to call in several times and get her assistance. Each time she has been polite, professional, thorough, understanding, and knowledgeable. He was very happy with his experience with TUD and wanted her specifically to be recognized. So she passed that on to me and said that she couldn't agree more and that she's a rock star. And that is, when I think of Kalisha, I think of the word rock star. She does an outstanding job. She has a cool, calm, and collected. She's just as sweet as can be, and really, we couldn't have a better voice for the district. So I really appreciate that. And then lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge our field staff. So as you all know, and we talked about it a little bit earlier before the meeting started, it's been incredibly hot. Our field staff is out there working day in, day out, and weekends and holidays and nights, and they are going, and they don't complain. They're working their behinds off and getting you've seen all the projects that are being completed, and they just keep going and continue to provide outstanding service to our customers. And I just really wanted to acknowledge them for all the hard work they do in the heat, in the elements, and they're just outstanding. And so I really appreciate them. We do all we can to obviously protect them in the elements. We have a robust safety program, so we're making sure that they're staying safe in the heat, and their supervisors also do a great job there. So I just wanted to say well done to TUD staff in all areas, but especially the field staff that have been in the heat these last few weeks, and like I said, never complaining. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Abby. That's awesome. And I think it's really important that you bring up folks like Matt and Kalisha and our field crews. We all need to feel valued, and we like to feel informed as a board. So thank you. I really enjoy the time that we value these folks. So I hope if they're out there, thank you on behalf of all of us. Great job. And it has been sustainably hot. And no matter what I do to my plants, they're still not happy. It's the heat. So we're all kind of cranky, and my plants are cranky. So, all right. Anything else, Abby, or anything? Okay. Any other staff that would like to join in? Oh, yes, Jeff.
I'd just like to second your comments there, Barbara. You know, I get out and about quite a bit during the day, and you just can't drive anywhere without seeing a TUD truck somewhere and guys working. I mean, you just can't. So I appreciate those comments, Abby, and you're right. The staff deserves big kudos, and I certainly would like to pass those along as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kearns. So Steve, I know you did a lot of presentations. Anything that you would like to add for staff reports?
No, I think I've shared more than my share, and just thank you to the board for your input, your involvement, and we're fortunate to have a great team. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, any comment from the public on staff reports before I turn it over to the board?
No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, with that, let's move to directors' communication and their reports. Who would like to go? Who has something to share?
Lisa Murphy and then Ron Ringen.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just like to task the board with, what we talked about earlier in the meeting, which is from the HR perspective, to put some thought into not only looking over those proposals, but also into what you'd like to see happen. If you'd like to see this to be, because our two choices are that we do more of an internal process utilizing Abby and the board and perhaps the senior staff in the process, or if we're going to go with a outside firm to do this, and just kind of develop your thoughts around that so we can have a future conversation about that. And then the second piece would be if we are inclined to going with an outside firm to do this, then it's important to also take a look at the materials that Abby created for the last go round, and get those, get your comments ready for how those would need to be changed to be put out there again. So those are two things, one contingent on the first. And I think those are the big things from the HR side of things. I haven't heard how the video is going from the outreach side. I haven't heard how the video is going with the student from Columbia College. But we had, in our last meeting, we had made suggestions about using a topographic map rather than the maps that appear on the TUD site that we've gotten. When talking about the watershed, it's a little bit hard to understand where the water comes from to come into the reservoirs from those maps, and we thought a topographic map would help with that. And then updating some of the pictures that were brought into that presentation. We had some suggestions about new photos of parts of the system going in there rather than just utilizing the old ones. So hopefully all that has gone into the video, and hopefully she's well on her way to making and editing that. So we'll hear more soon, but I just wanted to update you on kind of the suggestions we had made on that. Very good. So that's HR and outreach. Thank you.
It was Director Murphy, then Director Ringen.
Okay. On 7/14, I attended and participated in the Tuolumne County Natural Resource Committee meeting. Kind of interesting. I'm not a member of that committee. I always attend just as a Tuolumne County resident, but I've been to every one of them. And it was interesting that the discussion was around trying to combine the Tuolumne County, excuse me, Water Agency Policy Advisory Committee. And I had to tell them that, I attended every one of those meetings when they were going, and they hadn't met in a couple of years, and they had never really accomplished anything. And I didn't feel that it would be of any benefit whatsoever to combine the two, unless they had some sort of roadmap as to what they're going to try and accomplish that makes sense. So anyway, that's where that was. The next day, on the 15th, I attended the TUD Finance Committee meeting as an observer. The day after that, the 16th, attended the TUD Water Committee meeting, where we began revising the water rules and regulations. That's going to be quite a process. It's going to take some time. On the 21st, I attended the Tuolumne, Stanislaus, Irwin Joint JPA and Water Advisory Committee meeting. And what we got was a incredible tour of Murphy Sanitary District and all the improvements they've done to their system. I'm going to try and get our interim GM and maybe Rich Pitcher introduced and so on with their board. It's a incredible operation for a small district. They have done some just incredible things. And one of the things that really was surprising to me is they have installed spray fields, and they are besides what they send over to Couch Winery, which is what Couch waters his grapes, vines, and all with. They have spray fields that they put in, and what took me back was that they're able to actually legally, state is okayed, use hillside, which I've been under the impression that that's been one of our setbacks, is that we needed flat land with no runoff. So that would be another thing that might be interesting to learn more about. On the 23rd, attended the nature-based risk reduction study meeting. And I'll let President Balin, if she wishes to add anything to that. I won't get involved in it, but it was very, very interesting meeting, and it revolves around Paradise and the fire they had and what they're doing to prevent anything like that from occurring again. And maybe once again, we'll be able to learn some lessons and apply it to our area. On 26, attended the TUD, attended and participated in the TUD Water Committee meeting. And we had a really good discussion on stuff there. Once again, I'll let President Balin discuss that further if she wishes. And then I'd like to ask if it would be all right, President Balin, can I ask 2 questions concerning the I missed the I had 2 questions on the operational update and for the water and wastewater. And if I could ask Don Perkins 2 quick questions, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Perkins, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, on page 2 is a chart with all the levels for the last several years of Quartz Reservoir, and I see it is at the lowest it's ever been. Is that thing going to be bone dry before the end of the year?
Yeah, I think your statement that it's the lowest you've seen at this time of any year, I think that's an accurate statement. It's been lower, of course, towards the end of the season. However, you're right in thinking it's going to be. It won't be bone dry, of course. There'll be some puddle down there. We're monitoring that level on a day-to-day basis. We're just about to the bottom of the last outlet on the tower. We'll be down in the reserve pool in a few days, if not a couple of days. At that point, we just got to monitor it on a daily basis. We've been in we've been in contact with the reclamation users.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say that it's not getting any higher till we get some rain, and so it's going to continue to go down, and I'll bet there's going to be some unhappy ranchers.
I mean, yeah, disappointed. I don't know they'd be unhappy with TUD. I did meet with them, like I said, the Farm Bureau, and then on this last Friday, I was at the Tuolumne County Farm Bureau annual barbecue and had a conversation with a couple of them. They understand this isn't their first rodeo.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then on page 3, I was looking through some of the stats there, and I got down to sewer connections. I find it really difficult to believe that we have 6,129 new sewer connections. What is that figure correct? I mean, if it is, man.
Yeah, under other activities, just the second to last bullet point.
Right.
No, it's just a statistic. That's the total number of sewer accounts, not new accounts.
Okay, I was gonna say, Steve Sheffield would be grinning ear to ear if that was the case.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Ron. Director Boatright.
I just wanted to kind of concur with Director Ringen as to the wastewater committee, meeting one day in August for a meeting for the haulers in relation to the operations monthly report. It looked like there was definitely an outstanding month for total gallons of septic waste. Certainly to maybe have engineering bring up the calculation on how that charge is based and see if we're still current and bring it back to the board. And second item would be a discussion on the details for kind of rounding the corners and downsizing. The items, go into more detail on the items being considered downsized at the new Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. That's okay with everybody, and then bring them back as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, I'll wrap it up with my report. Let me see. Director Kearns and I met for the Finance Committee, and that was, I thought, very interesting. We looked over surplus properties, and we have nothing definitive to recommend at this time, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, on that, but that wasn't very informative, and we had a good discussion and took a look at some of those properties. And we gave direction to staff to keep working on that and flesh out those assets.
That's correct, Barbara. Yeah, it was a very good discussion, and yeah, I look forward to see what staff comes back with.
Yes, me too. And then let's see, we had a working group as we are starting to look at on Friday, the 16th, with staff on the rules and regs for the raw water. So rethinking some of that, especially with regards to fire flow as well. Then, as Don had mentioned, on the 19th, Don and I went over to the Water Committee of the Farm Bureau at their little headquarters, and we did some introductions, and we were able to listen to some of their more pressing concerns. So it was a good meeting, and they were represented by about 3 of the Farm Bureau were there. Then, yes, I went to the county's Natural Resources Committee. Sorry, I don't know what I'm on. Am I muted now?
Nope, you're good.
Oh, okay.
It did freeze up for a second though.
Okay. I hadn't been to some of those committees that the county was doing in a long time, and the Natural Resources Committee was very interesting. Again, they wanted to talk about hybridizing the Water Policy Committee with the Natural Resources Committee. So that was very. And then let's see. As Director Ringen implicated, we finally were able to get Supervisor Campbell and the Parks and Rec director from Paradise, Dan, I have his name here, FCF, and we brought in a TUD consultant and Aqua environmental consultant, Rick Lind, and it was a listening session, discussion on Paradise and their nature-based risk reduction grant that they had gotten, how much it cost. It was $40,000, and it was really informative. To have somebody survive the fire. He said, you know, we didn't get out of our silos; they burned down. Our silos burned down, and so that he was just an amazing resource. And he had some really good recommendations for us regarding making sure that our local hazard mitigation plans are in order, because key for FEMA money. And they've been able to continue to move on. I don't know. It's somebody vacuuming.
Can the TUD presenter mute your mic? I think you're interfering.
If so, can they come over to my house? No. Okay.
Sorry, Barbara, no vacuuming here.
Okay. Any rate, the meeting with Dan up in Paradise and having him go over the survivability of their community and what they're trying to do now in terms of risk reduction, and his recommendation for TUD to start with some of the assets that we own, that we just learned a lot about how similar we are, except that they've already burned. So they have some really great advice, and I'll just leave it with our interim GM will continue the discussion with Supervisor Campbell on that. Their grant was $40,000. I just want to say through the Nature Conservancy, and that included a study and modeling, and all that is on their website. And they said we could use anything we wanted to. So let's see. The next thing was the Water Committee yesterday, and we had two items. The one was the Willow Springs raw water needs, and that is still in committee, but we are looking at a mutually beneficial direction. Willow Springs is concerned about their ponds and the water in there for a variety of reasons, including how they can help us and we can help them. So we don't have a formal recommendation on that yet. The second thing is the fire water draft points. And that was a very good discussion. We're looking at some of the work that's already done. I believe we've got about 22 fire truck stops that have already been identified, and seeing about making those available. One of the things that the Paradise people brought up was the fact that crews from everywhere come to their area, and they don't know where the water is, and they don't know about dead ends, and they think a road goes through, and so like that big long tour bus that ended up down there in Ward's Ferry, things like that would be very, very helpful especially for crews coming from out of the area where their water is and where the roads are and where the hydrants are. So we don't have any formal recommendation, but it was except we are directed staff to continue to work, because there will be some grant money available to begin identifying these fire truck water points around our community that can augment our fire flow for our entire community. So with that, I have nothing further to report. Yes, Director Ringen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that during that presentation that Dan gave us on that risk reduction, it was he put on a PowerPoint, and I was semi-amazed, if not completely amazed, that the pictures that he showed of the burned areas, the trees were standing still green, the lawns were still green. I mean, this wasn't 100%, but it was quite a bit. But the house or the buildings were gone. I mean, totally destroyed. So that's what we need to worry about here in Tuolumne County. Not only our watershed, because we'll lose that and then we're really in trouble, but the standing fuel is going to be our homes. And we need to make sure that we have water everywhere we can. And it should be raw water, because if we do have a fire, we're going to need that treated water to drink and bathe and cook with. And if we go and empty our tanks of the treated water, what are we going to drink? So anyway, this is, I've been talking about this for a long time, and I think we can finally make it come to be, I hope.
Well, it would be great to move the entire county forward. And I just wanted to add, one of the lessons learned up in Paradise is that they cannot continue to brush fuel breaks. It's just repeated entries. It's very, very, very costly. There's no monitoring of the types of invasive vegetation, plus climate change. And then you've got the atmospheric rivers like we're seeing in China right now, and certainly Germany, where they get the whole year's water supply in a few days. And so with the liquefaction of the slopes, all this is now being really thought through. So if you guys want to take another quick read of their nature-based report, what they're talking about is linking their green features, because those are the things that can not only help the community survive a fire. So an example, the Rosasco, treated effluent area, that has enormous value to saving lives and getting people out of harm's way if we have to evacuate. Certainly our whole ditch system. So they are underparked, as he said, and so they're looking at parks and orchards and folding those into these linkages around their communities as part of their risk reduction plan. So it was very valuable. And I think you guys all have copies of their report. So I'm going to send some other stuff around. Placer's been doing some green risk reduction, nature-based, with insurance also. So that came through Aqua, and I'd like to send that out to folks too. Certainly that's where the money may be coming too, with the new executive order that Newsom sent around that talked about this very thing. So any further comment or any comments from the public? Yes, Director Murphy.
Yeah, was that session recorded by chance?
No.
Okay.
Well, it was on Zoom, but Dan had called the meeting, and I don't know if he recorded it, but I can find out.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be great to have access to that if we can.
Yeah, David.
Barbara, I just had a question. As we were looking at the raw water fire draft points, are those also points where construction water can be drawn off instead of drawing potable water off of our tanks and stuff as well?
But wouldn't that be something? I don't know. We'll have to.
I've suggested that in the past.
I hadn't heard it recently, so thank you, Ron, for bringing it up. There it is again.
Yeah. In fact, just so you know, we have a raw water hydrant on the Eureka at the Ponderosa Water Treatment Plant that has been used in the past, both for construction when they do maintenance on the Mount Provo gravel road, and during fire suppression during the 2013 rim fire. So yes, they can be, if they're close enough. Yeah. Eric does a good job. Eric and Matt do a good job of trying to direct different contractors to where some of these raw water hydrants are, to get them to use those hydrants whenever possible.
That's great. Yeah, we're having to rethink water in our county, and we haven't even touched flooding yet. So, okay, any other comments?
I had one more question to follow up. I was trying to digest what Director Boatwright was lamenting during his report. And if I understood him right, David, you want to you want to at a wastewater committee meeting, I think, talk about possibly downsizing the new treatment plant. Is that what you were getting at, or did I miss it?
I'd just like to discuss further what has been brought up, and, you know, kind of, I'm pretty stuck in my ways as far as being opposed to downsizing, you know, what was being engineered and stuff. And I would just like some, you know, greater detail on what was being discussed.
Yeah, if it's okay, I would encourage you to call myself, Steve, and Eric, so we can meet with you. I just don't know the timing that's going to come down. So, but if it's okay, feel free to reach out to Eric and Steve and myself if you want, or we can have that at a committee, or both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. I think the other item was to look at the septage, right? Go over the septage schedule. I could be wrong.
You know, the cost, and just make sure that we're still current with our pricing for the septage receiving.
Very good. Okay. All right. If there's no further business or no further sharing, then I will conclude this meeting and adjourn it at 10:44 a.m. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good
Have a
meeting.
great rest of the day, and we'll see some of you tomorrow.
Everyone have a good afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.